Seranthony Dominguez, one of the best late-inning relievers in Major League Baseball, is heading from the Baltimore Orioles to an in-division rival in the Toronto Blue Jays as the Blue Jays look to push their lead in the American League East and in the American League itself and secure a first-round bye in the MLB postseason. Before the season began, I think most people would have said the Orioles would be where the Blue Jays are now, and if there was going to be a trade between the two teams, the Orioles would probably be giving up prospects to get a reliever from the Blue Jays, but 2025 has shown that the Toronto Blue Jays are atop the AL East, one of the best teams in all of baseball, and the Orioles have really struggled, which is why they are now trading away an expiring contract in Seranthony Dominguez to Toronto, so Toronto can try and make a deep postseason run for the first time in quite a few years. In exchange for the half year of Dominguez, the Orioles are acquiring a right-handed pitcher already in AAA, a former third-round pick just 2 years ago out of Oklahoma State, who could be a very serviceable player as a maybe third spot in the rotation, or could even be another high leverage arm in a couple years at the major league level, maybe even as soon as next year as the Orioles are looking to compete in 2026. In this video, we'll dive into this trade as Juaron-Watts Brown is the prospect heading back for Seranthony Dominguez, look at both players, see exactly what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then give grades to both of these teams in the AL East to see if they're actually getting anything valuable back. See if there's actually going to be positives for either, what are the drawbacks, and see if you should be excited about this trade if you're an Orioles or a Blue Jays fan. Before we begin, it would be so impactful if you could subscribe to the channel, get you more content like this from me and other great creators out there as well, and you will be up to date on every single trade that happens this trade deadline. We're only 3 days out from the actual deadline hitting, and there's going to be so many more deals coming, so follow this channel to stay up to date and get all the information about the players, the prospects, and how good each team is doing as the trade deadline commences. Without further ado, let's dive into this brand new Blue Jays-Orioles trade that just happened a few moments ago. Seranthony Dominguez has been a high leverage relief arm for basically his entire career. When he first got called up with Philadelphia in 2018 at age 23, he pitched for 53 games, 58 total innings pitched, and racked up 16 saves as a rookie en route to a 2.1 BWAR, which is his highest so far in his career. He missed all of 2020 due to injury, but came back strong in the subsequent 3.5 years he spent in Philadelphia, really being a solid back-end piece, although not as their closer, for a really good stretch of solid Philadelphia teams. In 2024, the Baltimore Orioles acquired him from the Phillies alongside Christian Pache for outfielder Austin Hayes, who was on an expiring contract, and he spent this now basically full season since being acquired last trade deadline, traded away on July 26, 2024, with Baltimore, before now, of course, being headed up above the border to Toronto. He's had his best season since 2022 with the Baltimore Orioles this year. His ERA sits at a 3.24, although two saves because Baltimore does have a very stacked back end of the bullpen, despite not being very good so far this year. And his fielding independent pitching, which is basically a metric used to measure pitchers if you removed all the variability of fielders and just saw how their pitching affected outcomes, is a 3.47, which is his lowest since 2022 and is significantly below league average. His 122 ERA plus, stemming again from that 324 ERA, shows that he's about 22% better than the average pitcher so far at Major League Baseball this year. And he's not a huge strikeout guy, 54 and 41 and 2/3 innings pitched, which is definitely a nice solid number, 11.7, but he's not at the high end echelon of strikeout pitchers. The one area his game has been especially weak this year is his walk rate. He's walking 5.2 batters per nine, which is by far his career high. The highest before that was in 2023 in Philadelphia, where he walked 4, so he's definitely walking a ton of batters. However, he's also allowing less home runs. Right now, his home runs per nine is at 0.9. The past couple of years have been hovering around 2, so there's definitely a nice little drop off there. He's allowing less home runs. Currently, he has 0.4 BWAR. Again, far cry from his season's highs of 2.1 in 2018 or 1.4 in 2022, but he's definitely a nice solid back-end relief pitching that the now Toronto Blue Jays can add to a very solid bullpen as they go ahead and fight for a postseason spot and a spot in the World Series and eventually a World Series ring. Bullpen was definitely a need for the Toronto Blue Jays, as Jeff Hoffman and Yariel Rodriguez are both really solid bullpen pieces. Hoffman may be one of the best so far this year in Major League Baseball, but at the end of the day, they really needed another piece. Brandon Little, Braden Fisher wasn't going to fit it, so Seranthony Dominguez immediately slots in as your 7th or 8th inning setup guy based on who you want to face. Another righty in a bullpen, although it's a little sparse on lefties, really does fit in as another high leverage reliever that Orioles fans should be disappointed or he's gone, but should be excited the fact that they traded away a expiring contract. And Blue Jays fans should be excited they're getting another solid back end piece that's going to be very solid going forward and provide them a little bit more bullpen depth, which is a lot of people have said over the past about decade or so since the Kansas City Royals did it, is one of the most important things going into the postseason. The player heading back to the Baltimore Orioles in this deal is Juaron-Watts Brown, who is currently in Double-A and was the Blue Jays' 2023 third-round pick out of Oklahoma State. He has a solid four-pitch mix, a fastball, a curveball, a slider, and his changeup. His big calling card is his slider. That's by far his best pitch. It's a plus pitch. All the others hover around average, but his slider truly is the put-away pitch. The fact that he has four solid pitches really cements his spot as a solid spot in the rotation going forward. If something falls flat, his slider will allow him to be at least a middle leverage, maybe lower high leverage arm at his best as a reliever long term. He's 23 again because he did go to college. He had a stint at Long Beach State before transferring at Oklahoma State. Did really well in the Big 12. He led the conference in strikeouts and strikeouts per nine, even though there was a little bit of inconsistency in his performance at Oklahoma State, which allowed him to sign for an above slot $1 million in that third round, which is definitely something that you like to see out of a college junior getting drafted when they have the option to go back to college. One thing that the Blue Jays tried to emphasize this year with Watts Brown was adding a little bit of weight. He's 6'3", 190, so still kind of lanky, and so bulking up a little bit would allow him not only to be more durable, but potentially add a little bit more velocity to his fastball, which sits around 92, 94. It's touched around 97 at its peak, maybe a little bit less than that. It's got decent rise, and he tends to release it very high up, so he has just a very strong angle of approach into the batter's box. It really tunnels well with the slider, which is why the slider is so effective. He gets a ton of swing and miss with it. The whiff rates on the slider are elite level, top 5 percentile, and although it doesn't have an elite spin, the fact that it tunnels so well with the fastball really makes it a great combination, and why so many hitters end up swinging and whiffing at the slider because they're expecting a fastball because it looks the same coming out of the hand. He has some decent control. His walk rates have not been great throughout his minor league career. He really struggled a lot across both high A and single A in 2024. Just in general, an ERA of 4.72 across 21 games, 103 innings pitched, and he walked 60 batters across that time, which is fine, but for a starter, it's a little bit high. So far in 2025, he did make the jump up to Double A about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Pitched most of the season there, 11 games, 51 and 2/3 innings pitched. He's struck out 53 across that, with again 26 walks. Not great, but his ERA is significantly lower at a 3.48. Definitely someone who's improved his stock a little bit. Currently 14th on Baseball America's top 30 for the Toronto Blue Jays. Started the season number 10 for the Blue Jays in MLB Pipeline, but again, take that with a grain of salt because it has not been updated since the beginning of the season, where people will definitely shift around a significant amount. I would expect him at his peak to be a number 3 starter in the rotation if everything works out well. I think more realistically, you're looking at a back-end guy, a 4th, 5th starter, maybe someone who can be a long reliever 5th starter. And if the starting thing doesn't work out, the fact that his fastball and slider really do tunnel well, I see him as a high middle leverage reliever, maybe your 3rd or 4th guy in a bullpen who can go ahead, maybe drop the changeup or the curveball based on what the scouts think is going to work best. Focus on those 3 pitches. Focus on really maintaining the slider and fastball, making those the dominant pitches and something to go and throw hitters off, and you have the makings of a very solid bullpen piece at the very least. I think the upside is high for the Orioles. The floor is pretty high. He's not going to be an ace. He's not going to be a number 2 most likely, but the odds of him being a solid piece going forward with now 6 years, 7 years of control potentially, there's definitely a lot of value the Orioles can get out of Juaron-Watts Brown, especially given that he's 23, doing really well in Double-A. He should make his major league debut next year. Now that we've gone ahead and talked about both the players in this deal, let's give each team trade grades and assess who actually won this trade. We'll start with the Toronto Blue Jays, so I'm going to give a grade of an A- for this deal. I think this is definitely a very solid addition to their team. Having another bullpen arm is going to be very beneficial for them, someone they can count on come the postseason. I'm looking at the back end of their bullpen right now, and I'm looking at Lazaro Estrada, Chad Green, Paxton Schultz, Mason Fluharty, Tommy Nance. None of those names jump out as me as guys that you want pitching 7th, 8th, 9th in a Game 7. And yes, of course, you're going to have 3, 4 guys like a Jeff Hoffman, Yari Rodriguez, Brandon Little even, who are doing a solid job so far this year, although Little struggled recently in the past about 2-3 weeks. You have guys that you're happy pitching those late innings, but you can only throw out a reliever so many times before if they pitch game 5, game 6, now in game 7, they're not going to be as effective. You're not going to want to use them. So having another bullpen piece is going to be a huge addition. I think the value they could have gotten if there was a lefty on the market, I think that would have helped a lot. Brandon Little is really the only guy who I would see as their really true solidified lefty in the bullpen. Of course, Mason Fluharty, who was a 5th-round pick in 2022, definitely has the potential to be, but right now he is not someone that I would call on in a super late inning situation if I were a Blue Jays fan. So another lefty to the bullpen would be a big help. But again, having another solid bullpen piece is really going to be impactful. And Dominguez is going to leave at the end of this year, which is fine. And that's the only reason why he gets an A-, because I do really like Juaron-Watts Brown. I think he has potential to be a very good player going forward. But the Blue Jays window is closing somewhat soon. So you have to go all in, and that means acquiring players on expiring deals. And Dominguez is that, and Dominguez is going to provide some immediate value and hopefully solidify the back end of a Toronto Blue Jays bullpen that could really use any support it can get, because they are currently leading a very competitive AL East and really want to fight off as much as they can, because even though the Orioles have not done great this year, 49 and 50 at the time of recording, they're still a good team with a lot of really good talent, and all the other teams in the AL East are above 500 fighting for a playoff spot. So as much they can get to support their bullpen is definitely needed right now. For the Orioles, I'm going to give this an A, and I waffled back from an A+ to an A, and I think I'm going to give it an A simply because you're helping a team in the division win the World Series. That's not what you want to do, even if it is getting more value back than you were going to give up. It sucks to trade within the division, and also I think if Watts Brown doesn't end up being a number 3, number 4 starter and ends up more as a long reliever or maybe a lower high leverage arm, I think there's a little bit of risk for. You're really not happy with what you got out. There's still a little bit of control issues with him, so if it doesn't work out, I think that risk isn't there. This isn't a slam dunk 100% accept every time. I probably would accept 95% of the time, but a little bit of hesitation there. I think overall, when you look at the Baltimore Orioles, though, there's a lot of opportunity for him to go ahead and make an impact. You look at their current rotation: Zach Eflin, Charlie Morton, Brandon Young, Dean Kramer, Trevor Rogers. Rogers has been great this year, but Eflin should probably be traded. Morton should probably be traded. There's a lot of opportunity right now to go ahead and actually have people next year, when you're trying to compete, be competitive. You're going to have Kyle Bradish, Cade Povich, Grayson Rodriguez back, but you're going to want to have as much support as you can in that rotation. And Watts Brown could do that, maybe not at the start of the season, but mid-season as a replacement for someone who got hurt. Chase McDermott could also do that. So there is a lot of depth there at the starting position, which is great. And I think adding to that depth is really going to be a solid piece, especially if they end up trading another reliever, maybe Yainer Cano. Andrew Kitcher is going to be a free agent at the end of the season, so their bullpen's kind of thin. At the very least, he can be another bullpen piece to support them as they make a playoff push. They're probably going to add more to that in free agency, but I do think this is a solid addition that can help them with their true competitive timeline, which probably at this point starts in 2026. Even though a lot of people thought it started last year, this season has shown a little bit of a hiccup there. And Watts Brown doesn't fit with the Jays timeline given that it's so short, so I don't necessarily hate that they traded him away. Trading him to a division rival sucks, but if you're going to make a trade, you might as well go all in. And I think both teams made out very well in this deal based on their timeline, the player they got back, and their current needs. And thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. I hope you got a lot of really great insight about what is going on in both these teams' minds, and who do you think won this deal? If you're interested in more content, there will be 2 videos up on the screen. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the very next video when we talk about the next big trade that happens at the 2025 MLB Trade Deadline.